When you're translating a game, there are two major considerations that go into changing each line to a new language. The first, trying to be as accurate as possible. The second, trying to ensure that the translated line fits up to the same amount of screen time as the original. There's a third consideration, though, which is how to translate idiomatic speech and jokes. These are so intrinsically linked to the language in which the script was originally written that it creates unique challenges in trying to transfer the lines over to a new language. To better understand how this works in practice, let's take a look at the prologue in The Quarry, and this one exchange in particular.
Why'd you kill the music?
I think you know why.
I don't think I do.
It begins with an L. Like the L word.
Lesbians?
Lost, Max. We're lost.
We're in geographic flux.
Right, so... lost.
Alright, so this joke is a reference to the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, where the L word is referred to, and instead of realizing that the person is talking about love, Scott assumes that they're referring to the TV show, The L Word, which is about lesbians. So the Quarry is already too deep into a cultural reference here. For this joke to make sense, though, the words lost and lesbian have to both start with the same letter. How will the translators handle this exchange if that isn't the case in the language they're translating the scene into? Let's find out. And, as usual, I'm using Google Translate to help me with this and checking with a couple of friends who know more languages than I do. In Spanish, Laura says a word that starts with P, and Max guesses pan, or bread. And then she responds with perdidos, for lost. So the structure of the exchange is intact, but the joke has been completely changed. Dutch. This time it's the V word, and Max guesses vrouwenliefde. That one was rough. Which Google tells me translates as wife love. An odd choice, since the Dutch word for lesbian is lesbienne, but the Dutch word for lost is verdwaald. So the translator, in an attempt to preserve the joke, reverse engineered a description of lesbian that doesn't really work, logically. In Danish, the structure is the same, with L word and lesbian. But then we get to their take on lost, which is a little weird. They used langt bortestaan, which apparently means far away, rather than faret wild, which is apparently a more accurate version for lost. So it's the opposite of Dutch, and they're twisting the lost translation to make the reference fit instead of the lesbian translation. The Polish translation comes up with an interesting trick to deal with lesbian and lost, starting with different letters. The L word that Laura uses here is las, which means woods. So she says, woods, Max, we're lost in the woods. Now that's not perfect, but it's a pretty elegant solution. In Russian, the line becomes the P word, which Max assumes is porno, and Laura responds with poterial, which is how you say lost apparently. Essentially the same joke, you just lose a movie reference. The Portuguese version also takes some interesting liberties in the translation. Here lesbian is lesbicas, so they just stick with the L word. But instead of lost, she says location, Max. We're lost. Which is honestly pretty close. It's interesting because they could have done what the Spanish translations do. Because bread and lost start with the same letter in Portuguese as well, pau and perdido. But instead, they wanted to get as close to the original joke as possible. French is an interesting example because they completely shift the joke into a new structure. No lesbians or L words here. Instead, Laura stammers, repeating the phrase, maybe because we're, twice, and the second time, she starts saying the word lost, paume. But he jumps in at the P sound and says, polite, creating a new joke entirely, as he's kind of mocking the idea that it was rude to the woods to have the music up that loud. Italian gets rid of the lesbian joke as well, with Max guessing the P word is pause, presumably because the music stopped, before being told that it's per se, which is the word for lost. I've saved the best for last, because German was always going to be a big challenge, not because of the translation issues here. Lesbian and lost are lesbisch and veriert, though, so that would have posed an issue had they been interested in translating the joke at all. Let's just say that creating light moments of humorous interplay isn't as vitally important in the German culture as it is in many others. So here's what the German version replaced the dialogue with. Why did you turn off the music? I think you know. No I don't. Because you got lost. As expected. So yeah, German Laura is brutal. Sure, you could interpret this as being as playful as the other comments, but they all focus on the idea that we're lost. Only the German Laura turns it into an accusation. I am very curious about the rest of the game's German translation. As you can see, translation is a challenge at the best of times, so I can only imagine the work that went into putting together a fully produced audio or subtitle track for a 10-hour game with 1,000 pages worth of alternate dialogue options. Hopefully they managed to do as solid a job with the rest of the game's dialogue as they did in this exchange. I've been the Hidden Object Guru, thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, consider checking out our Patreon. You can join heroic patrons like Marissa, Joanne, Eduardo, Brian, and Archer in helping keep the lights on around here. If you'd like to see more, there's nightly streams and plenty of videos to check out. We'll see you back here for the next thing, but until then, au revoir.